Welcome to Islam Poetry Slam, our first event. I would like to introduce a dear brother and friend of mine. He's done fashion design for A-list, B-list, and C-list celebrities. He's also directed videos for celebrities. Please say a loud Nada Salawat for my brother, Mukhtar Ali.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and I want to introduce you to my brother Zain. Has a quite striking personality, so I really like. He's the VP of A&R for A&R Box Packaging. He's worked with companies like Oakley, Costco, Obey Clothing, and he's an executive MBA candidate. So please give a loud salawat for Zain.
The first speaker I'd like to announce is a sister that gave an outstanding speech at IECOC, and off the strength of that, we decided to invite her to do our Sisters Panel speech. Please say a loud Nada Salawat as I call to the stage Sister Rukhsar.
سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. أما بعد، قال الله الحكيم في القرآن المجيد: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولا تنازعوا فتفشلوا وتذهب ريحكم. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Please recite another salawat. So upon doing my research to prepare this discourse on the importance of unity, I was amazed by how many ayat are present in the Holy Quran, where on numerous occasions Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us, constantly reminds us to abstain from division and disagreement, and instead to remain focused on unity and to remain in harmony with one another. And this constant emphasis by the Quran alone helps us understand that somehow unity is central to faith, central to lifestyle, social order. Yet we see that it continues to diminish in our societies. At the macro level, we see this manifesting in political polarizations and policies, while at the micro level, we see this in schisms in relationships, organizations, and even religious institutions. In fact, there is actually a conscious awareness that this remains a problem before us. In 2018, the NBC News/Wall Street Journal poll reported that 8 out of 10, or 80% of the people who were surveyed, believe that our country is, quote, mainly or, quote, totally divided. The more devastating news is that in a country where views are typically split on issues at 50-50, this happened to be one of the few where there was a large consensus. So this emphasizes how grave of an issue this is before us and for the future of our society, and begs for change. But before we can discuss change, let's understand why it's necessary to be unified in the first place. So I started this speech with a particular ayah of the Holy Quran, and this is ayah 46 from Surah Al-Anfal, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states, "And do not disagree amongst yourselves, or you'll be unmanned and lose courage." Now, while this surah was largely in reference to the Battle of Badr, we know that the Quran is a timeless book of guidance. And the tafsir of this particular ayah by Ayatollah Magrib Shirazi suggests that there is a lesson that we can apply to the matter at hand. Ayatollah Magrib Shirazi explains that by this ayah, the reason discord and dispute are forbidden, so not discouraged, but forbidden by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is because they are causes of disorder. How so? He states that they may cause waste of power and eventually bring about failure and humiliation. Now let's focus this on a context that is more familiar to you and me in order to better understand this together. So alhamdulillah, many of us present here today are working, we have jobs, and I'm sure that when you first started working or underwent training, your training must have included some element of team building. Whether it was a spiel that your employer made you sit through hours and hours of, or you had a team building exercise that involved marshmallows and spaghetti sticks, and you had to balance the marshmallow on the spaghetti sticks. Everyone has seen or is familiar with some version of this, right? Why did your employer make you do this? It is because your employers know that their company, their organization, is a microcosm of the real world. It functions the same way. So if their employees will work divisively, they know what the consequences are. Divisive working will be direct causes for what? As Ayatul Makarim Shirazi pointed to, failure, humiliation, waste of power, and ultimately what will be the result, the outcome of that company. It will not last. Similarly, our beloved Prophet Muhammad ﷺ reminds us of the same message. Please recite a salawat. As stated in Nahj al-Fasaha, unity brings good and discord agony. That if working in factions or divided groups was indeed that productive towards the advancement of society, the elements of this hadith would be reversed. We know that Islam is the complete and true religion, and whatever has been decreed in our faith is meant to lead us in the direction of success and fulfillment. So if indeed discord and division were leading us to success, would Islam not be the first to promote it? Instead, this hadith cautions us that it leads to agony, making it counterproductive towards our well-being. And we see Rasulullah Sallallahu words taking shape before our eyes. An article reported that in a 2019 study, 40% of Americans claimed that a source of significant anxiety, insomnia, and suicidal thoughts was politics. And a part of that political climate on mental health was attributed to polarization. Now, I too wanted to better understand what is the correlation of polarization on mental health. And an article on FHE Health suggested a potential answer. That when we focus on polarization, we are lessening cooperation and increasing an us against them mentality. These are their words, an us against them mentality, to constantly compete for the dominant viewpoint. And what this does is cause stress, which then wears away at our mental health, leading to some of the conditions that I had mentioned earlier. But more largely, because we become so focused on trivial issues such as this, we lose the purity of our intention altogether. Now what we may be doing may not be necessarily to please, to gain proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but instead it will feed our nafs, our desires, our ego. And thus we can no longer focus on those larger issues that are impacting the well-being and stability of our society. It's easier. It's easier to walk away, to go separate, than to focus ourselves in conflict resolution, than to reconcile the compromise, because that requires stepping out of your comfort zone. But easier doesn't always mean correct. It was easier for Imam Hussein alayhi salam to give allegiance to Yazid ibn Muawiyah, but it wasn't right. Because Imam Hussein alayhi salam knew that someone like his honorable self could never do bay'ah to someone like Yazid ibn Muawiyah. So he, the religion of Islam, the ummah of his grandfather, everything was at stake. All of humanity would be covered by an eternal darkness of ignorance, injustice, and corruption if the caliphate fell into hands of someone like Yazid ibn Muawiyah. And it took Imam Hussein alayhi salam to do something that isn't merely uncomfortable, but that is rather painful. What Abu Abdullah experienced on the day of Ashura even makes the word painful an understatement. Watching his brother, his sons, his loved ones be brutally slaughtered on the plains of Karbala, and then to carry each one of their bodies back to the tents. What was the plight of Imam Hussein alayhi salam as he carried his 6-month-old baby in his arms, thinking about how he would face Umrah? How would he tell the mother of this infant that he had taken him to the river to quench his thirst and had to return him to her with a 3-pronged arrow that shattered his neck? What was the plight of Abu Abdullah? That after him, his women and children would not be safe. They would be looted. Their tents would be burned. They would be taken as prisoners, and they would have to travel from Karbala to Kufa and from Kufa to Sham. We're here today in the remembrance of the Arbaeen of Abu Abdullah. Why is Arbaeen significant? It is because it is an acknowledgement, a tribute, that until today, there hasn't been a single person like Imam Hussein alayhi salam to undergo such oppression, such injustice, all for the sake of Islam and the Ummah. Our home, family, friends, health, wealth, food, how important are these things to us? But to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, they were insignificant in comparison to the larger focus, the mission that he had. And the events of Arbaeen teaches us this. It teaches us how to focus on the larger picture. Those of you who have had the fortune to perform the ziyarat of Abu Abdullah during Arbaeen can better attest to this than I can even explain. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all the tawfiq to perform his ziyarat soon. Millions journeyed towards Karbala. And subhanAllah, this year was record-breaking. 21 million visitors from different parts of the world, different walks of life, different backgrounds. Yet they all chanted the same name. They all had the same objective in mind. This journey isn't beautiful because of the diversity. Rather, diversity is beautiful because of this journey. It is because of this journey that we receive the opportunity to peacefully gather, to work together towards the advancement of something greater. It pushes us to overcome and dissolve our differences, and it unites our hearts by shifting our focus on a love-based devotion. It teaches us the very thing that we're unfortunately struggling to overcome. And that is why we must treat every day like Arbaeen, because our generation is facing several unique socio-political challenges. Islamophobia, sectarianism, the pandemic, climate change, to name a few. And unfortunately, we have both experienced and witnessed the harsh consequences of these challenges. And you'll agree with me, these are not small issues to tackle, but the ones that are becoming bait for others to prevent us from tackling these major challenges. A wise jurist, and may Allah have mercy on his soul, has perhaps summarized it best, that we Muslims are busy bickering over whether to fold or unfold our arms during prayer, while the enemy is devising ways of cutting them off. Now, this quote in particular is in reference to sectarianism, but it helps us understand that sometimes our focus needs to be bigger picture based. We need to be treating the issues that are dividing us as trivial. We must internalize the message of Arbaeen so we can overcome this global challenge of disunity and disagreement. I end with asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to expand and enlighten our hearts with compassion and mercy for one another, so we can hold on to the rope that leads us back to Him, so we are not divided amongst ourselves, but that rather we strive to become the one ummah that He has decreed for us to be.
Please, everyone, with an additional salawat for Rukhsar, please. Okay, so I just wanted to let you guys know how the event is going to go as far as the poets. So essentially, the poet will come on, they'll recite their piece, and then after their piece is done, we'll take a question from the sisters first, and then we'll take a question from the brothers afterwards. In the comments, you can comment however you like. Of course, these poems are about the Ahlul Bayt, so make sure you're not too critical about the poems. That's pretty much it. So we'll move from the poet will come, there'll be some commentary, then the next poet will come, there'll be some commentary, and we'll follow that along throughout the whole entire night. Please, thank you.
So So the next speaker, I'm going to introduce my dear brother and my good friend. I want to tell a story about him. One day, pretty recently, we were at a funeral, and me and this brother were chopping it up for like 30 minutes uninterrupted. And then a dear uncle from the community came up to him and said, pointed at me and said, "Is this guy bothering you?" And then the Seyed looked at him, looked at the uncle, pointed at me and said, "This guy?" Me and this guy go way back. Please say a loud Na'at Salawat for the respected and knowledgeable Sayyid Mehdi Qazwini.
How far back do we go? 20 years? Just about 20 years. Alhamdulillah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashraf al-anbiya'i wal-mursaleen. Habibi ilah al-Alameen. Abil Qasim al-Mustafa Muhammad. وعلى أهل بيتها الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. I was asked to begin with a very short dua, and when I was thinking to myself what dua to pick, I said this is a theater and stage fright happens here, even for professionals. So I had our reciters in mind, and I thought of a dua which comes directly from the Quran, Surah Taha, chapter number 20. When the Prophet Musa alayhi salam stood, or before he stood in front of the Pharaoh, he said the following words: Rabbi shrah li sadri, wa yassir li amri, wahlul uqdatan min lisani, yafqahu qawli. Oh Allah, expand my chest, make my affairs easy upon me, undo the knot from my tongue. The Prophet Musa alayhi salam had a speech impediment. Yafqahu qawli, so that they understand what I say. I want to take a few minutes and just talk about why we're gathered here and the significance and how we tie this back to the tradition of Arbaeen. I remember a mentor of mine telling me a few years ago, he said, people will forget what you said to them, but they will never forget how you made them feel. Poetry, eulogy, lamentation is about emotion. It's about feeling something more than just understanding or learning in an intellectual way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, he says, when you speak to people, speak to their souls. فَأَعْرِضْ عَنْهُمْ وَعَظْهُمْ وَقُلْ فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ قَوْلًا بَلِيغًا. Speak to their souls. Speak to the center of their emotions, because we don't change unless we feel different. You don't make a purchase unless you feel different. You don't make a big decision unless you feel different. So it's more than just knowing, it's about feeling. And the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam would encourage, the Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam would encourage eulogies, poetry, lamentation of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, because they knew that that was the prime way of waking up an ummah which had fallen asleep. Words were not enough. You needed to get to their souls. One narration tells us that when Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam was returning, along with Lady Zainab and the rest of the surviving members of the household of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, when they were returning to the city of Medina, before they entered the city, the Imam met a young man by the name of Bishr ibn Hadlam. Some of you probably know this story. Bishr was an amateur poet. His father, Hadlam, was a professional. The Imam saw him, and before he entered the city of Medina, he wanted to prime the people of Medina. He said, I want you to go in, Bishop, and I want you to use the best of your poetry to eulogize and lament what happened to my father only 40 days ago. Bishop takes that message, and he had to come up with verses from the top of his head. I mean, back then they used to freestyle this type of poetry. And so he enters the city of Medina. He goes directly to the mosque of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He sits in the center and he says, يا أهل يثرب لا مقام لكم بها قتل الحسين فأدمعي مدرار الجسم منه بكربلاء مضرج والرأس منه على القناة يدار. O people of Yathrib, Hussein has been killed and my tears are flowing like rain. His body lies in Karbala covered in blood while his head is lifted on a spear. The message of Arbaeen in itself was delivered to the people of Medina, not by telegraph, not by text message, not by a letter, not by a speech. The message was delivered through what? Poetry, eulogy. So poetry plays a central role in the propagation of the message of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, and specifically the tragedy of Ashura and Arbaeen. Another man by the name of, what was his name? See, that's why I always bring the paper with me. Abu Harun al-Makfuf, a companion of the sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far bin Muhammad al-Sadiq alayhi salam. One day comes to the Imam during the season of Muharram. He comes to the Imam's home where a majlis was being held. And the Imam had basically pulled the curtain for the women folk to sit on the other side so that they can hear and participate in the eulogy of Imam Hussein. So this poet begins to, the Imam tells him, recite. And he begins to recite. The Imam stops him. He says, no. He says, recite, and this is in Medina, where Imam Sadiq was living. He said, recite as if you were standing by the grave of Hussein alayhi salam. That type of recitation, for those of you who have visited Karbala, some of you just came back from the Arbaeen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your deeds and allow us to be there next year and in the coming years. That type of recitation, the notes, the verses, the delivery is meant to arouse emotion. The Imam was delivering a message to this poet. It's not enough for you to just read off of a paper. You have to connect with people. You have to arouse their emotions, because when we feel different, we begin to behave different. And you heard it from Sister Rukhsar that this is an opportunity, the Arbaeen. It's an opportunity for us to look within. It's an opportunity for us to do an audit, hold ourselves accountable, study our values, study our behaviors, and start to change. Because if a man like Imam Hussein alayhi salam, who really had it all, but put everything that he had to the side and endured suffering, pain, torture, humiliation, and death, if he had to go through that, what's stopping you and I from changing some of our habits that are holding us back? That was the message that the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam wanted for us to understand as we commemorate Ashura and as we commemorate the Arbaeen. So as we're gathered here tonight to listen to poetry and words of wisdom by our esteemed poets, let us keep that in mind, that the emotion that we feel for Imam Hussein alayhi salam should be at the front and center. And we're very, very blessed that we live in a land where we are able to express ourselves freely. There are countries in the world where we can't gather the way that we've gathered here today. Here, all you have to do is show up. Small price to pay. And in the ziyarah of Arbaeen, Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, he says when describing Imam Hussein, he says, وَبَذَلَ مُهْجَتَهُ فِيكَ لِيَسْتَنْقِذَ عِبَادَكَ مِنَ الْجَهَالَةِ وَحِيرَةِ الضَّلَالَةِ. That the Imam gave up his muhja. In the Arabic language, the word muhja refers to the blood of the heart. Imam Hussein was willing to be cut open and spill the blood from his heart in order to do what? Save people from ignorance. Save people from going down the wrong path. None of us have to do that. None of us are asked to go out into a battlefield to fight. None of us are asked to do anything significant. All we got to do is show up and open up your minds and open up your hearts. And let the power of the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam transform you as an individual so that you can go out and serve society and transform society. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this night to bless those who are coming before us, to give them their reward, and to count us among the followers of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
So everyone, this is what we've come here for. Actually, can we have someone move the podium? Okay. So the first poet is going to be coming to the stage. If you're here and you're in the lobby, please come in. You don't want to miss this. This is what we all come here for. So the first poet, his name is Amir Sulaiman. He's a Grammy-nominated poet, a Harvard Fellow. He's been in Variety, USA Today. His last album was executive produced with Dave Chappelle. He's written for Marvel, Disney, Hulu, HBO, and he's received Emmy and Golden Globe nominations. He's also been on HBO Def Poetry Jam, and he was on the Jimmy Fallon Show. Please give a loud salawat for Amir Sulaiman.
No, it's not.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I'm a dead man walking, a mute man talking, a blind man watching my brothers die. And I've built all coffins much too often, and it gets so dark when our mothers cry. I know more than I want to, but not nearly enough. I thought I was writing for the love, but it just turned to be lust, and my trust in us was gullibility. The reality's just that. I'm not who I was, nor who I will be. But sometimes I feel me visiting, and I fill me with the lush scent of soul, the flavor of feeling, a rush of color. I think the pleasure may kill me. The pressure squeezes and spills me into the language of the unseen, the unthought, and the undreamed. And my heart begins to pump the thick, rich fluid of verse, searching for a simple word or phrase to fill the phase between the wet nurse and the black hearse. And I know sometimes my words lack worth, lack depth, lack girth, lack the distance to travel from heaven to earth, or from mind to brain, or from soul to flesh. I hold my breath in a hollow hopes that my hopes ain't hollow. It's just a message in a bottle, or a genie in a bottle, or a baby in a bottle, or a wino in his bottle. The symphony of me is stuck in staccato like a broken beat, breaking the vinyl into bits of blackness, spinning in circles. Come down, selector. Last night the DJ took my life and left the speakers empty and the speakers speechless and the dancers still dancing or not. They don't see our music as musing, merely amusing amusement. How could they know in basement booths we balance a nexus between the soul and the flesh is, with a science of intellect is, we rock genius like a necklace and drop jewels in gutters. But they fooled our mothers into thinking that they could raise sons in the darkness of night. But isn't the night always dark before the sun is raised? And when the sun is raised, doesn't he make the blood hot and the eyes squint and the breast sweat and the trees grow and the children play? The raised sun makes the pavement see the wavy apparitions, the mirage of future. But I know I'm a dead man walking, a mute man talking, a blind man watching my brothers die. And I've built our coffins much too often, and it gets so dark when our mothers cry. So now I'm walking a thin line between love and hate, between words that are spoken and beats that break. There's a thin line between a bullet in the chamber and a bullet in the brain. I'm civilized saying with a little savage in me. It's not really a little savage in me, just a lot of passion in me. And sometimes the soul rolls out of control without a glass of Henny, and some men are fine with being slaves just as long as master's friendly. And others spit fire at master until the mouth is empty. You don't need the pass to send me to see the assassin in me, but know that no soul is taken accidentally. The angel of death has an itinerary and snatch you right out of your Bentley, right out of your Gucci jeans, and right out of your Fendi, right out of your dashiki, and right out of your Kenti. Allah has written in his book and is going to erase the pen's ink. So why do we ignore what God knows and rely on what men think? We're just boys on the back street trying to get in sync. But my balance is off. My talent is lost. I've married my aunt, but she's barren, of course, and I can hear in her voice that we're nearing divorce. So before I hear him in court, I may have to kill my dreams and bury the corpse. I shouldn't tear for the loss. I feel like I'm bearing the cross, but my conception is so far from immaculate. For the most part, we're a bunch of bastard kids. Our fathers are gone, caught in a cycle of sadomasochists because our lives are dead wrong, but resurrected like Lazarus because our mothers are strong, and the romance is about as romantic as the master's kiss, but we have got to move on. And our lives are about as painful as the master's whip, but we have got to move on. And I wish I could sing for justice, but I know no such song. I know about Shahada, Salat, and Quran, Jihad, martyrdom, and homemade bombs. I know they say I'm wrong for talking about homemade bombs, but the leader of the free world can drop 8 bombs and napalm and got the nerve to ask, why did they hate us when they still got the blood on their palms? Why they stayed long and sang songs about freedom and justice all bloody day long? They claim they live right, but they have got to be dead wrong. And maybe just because I was so young and headstrong, but right now I'm still ready to run headlong into enemy fire type with desired death. I just got the same blood that pumps to a lion's chest. I come from a line of warriors that take off their iron vest and sheathe their swords and sprint to the thick of the mess. So I am begging them now, send me your best. There's only 2 possible outcomes. One, they can send me to rest. I can send them to rest, or they can send me to my Lord. I like the second one the best, but I will kill the killers and live and settle for less, because I'm already a dead man walking, a mute man talking, a blind man watching my brothers die. But I will build all coffins, and I will not take part in the death of my heart's kin. I'd rather die.
You sisters have a question for our brother Amir. Any question for the sisters? Any of our brothers have a question for Amir?
Yes, sir.
I have a question as a fellow artist. Do you ever feel like your art is forcing you to be that positive?
Did everyone hear what he asked? He asked as a fellow artist, do I ever find that my art is at odds with my faith. I've never had that dilemma. That piece takes me a second to recover from. So I've never had that particular dilemma. For me, my art has always been an extension of my faith, a means of expressing my faith. I was in the back, so I didn't see who was giving the speech about this was a means by which for me to serve Allah and serve His Prophet Salem, serve the people of His house. And so it is a means by which for me to seek nearness to Allah. It is a means of repentance. I seek forgiveness from Allah. It is a means of sadaqah, where if I can express something that can benefit someone, that perhaps Allah will be happy with me in doing so. So all of these things, it is a form of worship for me. So not only is it not in conflict, it is actually a help to me in worshiping Allah. Is there anything else? Oh, there's a sister? Oh, okay. Okay, I can't see anything, just so you know.
You wrote a beautiful song called I Love You More. And I believe you recorded that on the 9th of Muharram.
That's it, yes.
Taking back to that moment, I've listened to it a million times. I listen to every Ashura.
Alhamdulillah.
Tell me about what you were going through at that moment in time.
This poem called I Love You More, it was like it was one of those spontaneous moments. It's one of those that I rolled out of the bed with the poem just spontaneously. And I remember writing it. It was as if it was like it was hot in my mouth. I couldn't spit it out fast enough. You know, it came out all together, all at once, very rapidly. And again, it was a means to the point that I was just mentioning, a means by which for me to express something of my state in that day, and also, you know, to, as you mentioned, that you've listened to it many times, that it would be something even for people that don't write poetry, that it would be something that they would listen to and would facilitate the same type of state that I was in, or that we would share in that, you know, that's something about compassion. Even the word compassion, we have come at the beginning, meaning to share, like company or conspiracy or communication. These CO words mean to share. And then passion, from the Latin pati, which means suffering. So compassion is to share suffering. So when we come together in a gathering like this, and I'm suffering and you're suffering, and the way the hearts become soft with each other, and we become more empathetic and kinder to each other, at least we hope that's what should happen. And so, again, for the poet to pour out and facilitate that communal suffering that we have together, but that will elevate our states, inshallah ta'ala.
Everyone, give a loud salawat to our brother Amir Sulaiman.
We just have one from the sisters because they didn't get one.
When the sisters have a question?
Yes. Both. Sometimes I'll spontaneously have poetry and I recite. The poem that I just recited is a poem from maybe 20 years ago. So, and I write them and recite them around the country, around the world, in different, and I write them as well and publish them. So, all the different ways of doing poetry. Sometimes one is better than the other depending on my state. I just say them a lot. I know it says Really, it's the way that I write them, because I write the first line, then I write the second line, I say the first line, second line, first line, second line, first line, second line, think, okay, then here's the third line, first line, second line, third line, first line, second line, third line, go like that. So by the time I get to the end, I've memorized probably 75% of the poem by the time I finish writing it, because of the way that I write, that I'm repeating over and over again in the process. Yes. But I don't want to take too much time because I know we have so many other great poets. Thank you very much for your time and your attention.
Wow, that was crazy. That was amazing, mashallah. Can we have one more loud Nada Salawat with the loudest of your voices for Amir Sulaiman? That makes me want to rewrite and recite my poem and practice it more. The next poet I have coming up to the mic is Layla Naji, and her poem is entitled Ya Hussein, and it entitles a chant where the audience will do Ya Hussein as she's saying Ya Hussein. Please say a loud Nada Salawat for Layla Naji.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I can definitely tell you it's very intimidating to go after Brother Amir, so thank you, whoever put the schedule together. I am not sure how I found myself here. Somebody asked, I said yes, and I have the privilege of being here to celebrate the love that we all have for Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. And I know that that's what brings each of you here, and I would love to have your participation, and inshallah we can raise our voices as high as possible in memory of Imam Hussein and his sacrifice alayhi salam. All of my verses are 4 lines long, and the last 2 words will always be Ya Hussein, and I think that as we get into it you will catch on to the rhythm inshallah, and we will all be joining, and inshallah our voices will elevate to the Ahlul Bayt, and inshallah they are witnessing our remembrance of them. Ya Hussein. Say his name. Ya Hussein. Say his name. Ya Hussein. Say his name. Ya Hussein. In our veins. Ya Hussein. The hero of all heroes, the bravest of the brave. He sacrificed so we could gain. Say his name. Ya Hussein. Walking into certain death, losing a loved one with every breath, covered in their blood stains. Say his name. Ya Hussein. The children cry for water. He has to leave his daughter. He knows he will be slain. Say his name. Ya Hussein. He sends his nephews and sons. When they fall like a lion, he runs. The scene cannot be explained. Say his name. Ya Hussein. 72 on your side, your loved ones and your pride, facing an army of the inhumane. Say his name. Ya Hussein. Your allegiance to what is just, in Allah you put your trust. It had all been preordained. Say his name. Ya Hussein. The children witnessing it all, seeing all their loved ones fall. You endured that mental strain. Say his name. Ya Hussein. Ali Asghar in your arms, the most evil of them rearmed. An arrow pierced his veins. Say his name. Ya Hussein. Abbas could no longer bear the children's thirst. His death may have been the worst. A broken back brought too much pain. Say his name. Ya Hussein. No words to say to the children. The women strong they still remained. with hearts broken and faces tear-stained, say his name. Your sister Zainab, sending off her brother, kissed you on your chest from your mother, letting you go to be slain, say his name. The prophet looks on mourning. From years ago, he had a warning. Your sacrifice had been explained. Say his name. Your body left in pieces. Their evil never ceases. Left on the desert terrain. Say his name. The women and the children prisoners. The tents destroyed and burned. Never bowing to Yazid's reign. Say his name. Lady Zainab, a beacon of duty. She said all she saw was beauty. Her dignity she maintained. Say his name. Your loss was the world's gain. Forever loyal to you we remain. Your legacy we will sustain. Say his name. Say his name. Say his name. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. لبيك يا حسين.
لبيك يا حسين.
لبيك يا حسين.
لبيك يا حسين.
صلوات.
Any of the sisters have a question for our sister?
I think the incredible strength to endure what he endured on that day. When we talk about mental health, for those of you that don't know, that's primarily what I work in. To be able to have that trust and that faith in Allah and be able to watch each one of his loved ones die, one more precious than the other, and persevere and sacrifice himself. It allows us to put into perspective and not to diminish our own pain, because it's all real for us and it's all relative. But I think we're inspired by the fact that there's always a bigger goal, there's always a bigger reason, and there's always a bigger picture. And sometimes we have to go through pain in order to achieve something better. And inshallah, for us, it's never at the context of losing loved ones, but sometimes pain is what makes us grow, just like his pain and suffering has made the ummah grow. Thank you.
Do any of the brothers have a question for our sister? No? Okay. Everyone, please give a loud salawat for our sister.
MashaAllah. The next poet I'd like to introduce is my good friend and dear brother, who I just met 48 hours ago, and now we're joined at the hip. He's published 5 books of poetry. He reads and recites poetry worldwide. Please give a loud nare salawat for my brother, Nouri Sardar.
صلى على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد.
Inshallah, my poem will be 40 verses in honor of the 40th or the Arbaeen of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. صلى على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد.
40 days of grief follow Imam Hussein's 10. 40 days of grief to teach the soul revolution, lighting the spark of love deep within. For 40 days the blood of heavens wept upon Hussein's, the earth in darkness, in distress, tearing up mountains as eclipse would be the sun. It was at the age of 40 that Muhammad was told, read, and revelation descended that would one day bleed, and from his Hashemite skin. The 40 days of Moses was decreed by Allah. At Sinai the ark settled, before in Karbala it was left to die all alone. At 40 I memorized, like a true believer, 40 hadith in honor of the master of martyrs, a scholar on resurrection. At 40 came wisdom, after 40 days of reflection, 40 days kept away from all sources of deflection, from the very spirit of Hussein. It was 40 days after Ashura, give or take a year. I saw silhouettes on Karbala's horizon appear, who had aged a generation. Widows and orphans, like stars against the sky, with heads once upon spears to torment the bodies that lie deep beneath the desert dune. To Karbala they return, but without their souls, taken from them by Ashura, till they all grow old from the journey weak and thin. Zainab's eyes carried torment and had become grey, and the orphans left alive from their grief would sway, left clinging onto their queen, as they reapproached the land that is now conquered by death. 40 days after the day where all breathed their last breath, the dead return. What a scene! And all gather around the grave of the master of martyrs. All gather around the grave of the master of martyrs. Orphans quenching his thirst, using an abundance of tears. He has not been thirsty ever since. While Zainab leaves the children and heads toward the river to seek out the scent of her fallen half-brother, she rediscovers it therein. She sees not dust, but a mighty dome paved with gold, shaped like a teardrop, with minarets that stand tall. Instead of hands, two mighty wings. And in the world of souls, the Ansar circle the camp, holding their swords high, yearning life once again, if only it could have been. But for the bodies that remain, there is only silence. For the bodies that remain, there is only silence. Everything else broken, burnt, and lost ever since replies to their cries, the sound of wind. At least now there is peace. After the day the sky fell, flowers blossomed where blood fell, as was the Lord's will. It brings peace to men and jinn, but peace could not mend the heart of the mighty Zainab. Peace could not mend the heart of the mighty Zainab. From a strike upon the head to a mother's broken rib, she is the world's most broken orphan, whose tongue was a sword welded by the Creator, twinned with the Dhul-Fiqar. She was Haider, born again as a woman, unarmed. She shook an empire and she broke Yazid's throne, because she is of light and he was of mere flesh and bone. No match for the believer. Her sermon altered time and changed the course of history. The Umayyads were no match for the daughter of Ali, who conquered her own Khaybar. And what can Zainab be but a mountain of might, to bear the child's screams in the dead of the night, when she'd say, I want my father to return. And they brought out Hussein's head, and Ruqayya met her Lord. Zainab would wash her body with the tears that poured, because there was no shortage of them. It is from these captives that we take this tradition. It was from these captives that we take this tradition. One of Jabr al-Ansari, because when the news reached him, there was no hesitation. It was on the Arbaeen that he arrived in Taf, and if only he arrived, that would have been enough to inspire our millions. He bathed in the Euphrates, and he turned toward the grave. In the centuries that followed, so many more would crave Hussein's undying scent, much like Hajj's run between Safa and Marwa, which then became a ritual for Hajj and for Umrah until the day of judgment. Our Safa is Hussein and our Marwa is Abbas, and between the two is the flow of every beating heart and the soul of every pilgrim. And to our Safa we walk the distance and we give it our all. If our legs fail us, then to his grave we'll crawl. That's his love in its essence. We salute Ja'far as-Sadiq for emphasizing that our faith is incomplete unless we visit you. Be it if once in our lives, such is the stature of Ahmed's grandson. Each step is not like others, because it is heard by the heavens. With every step toward your shrine, we see fall to our sins of past, future and present, even when walking his road meant nothing but death and harm. Be it under Mutawakkil or under Saddam, we still came routine execution. And when visiting Hussein meant losing their left hands, you'd find those offering their right in the belief that they would stand beside Abbas in salvation. Nowhere else on earth do you find millions walking. Nowhere else on earth do you find millions walking in serenity, in peace, while their hearts are all chanting for the fall of all oppression. The world's eye can turn away and the news can still ignore, but into the old city, millions from all over the earth shall still pour, and somehow it accommodates them. The lovers of death can continue to lose their minds and detonate their bombs, for they shall continue to find above their bodies walking pilgrims, because death cannot challenge love. Death cannot challenge love, because love is the essence. Love is what keeps us walking. Love is our existence, because love has always been. And when we reach his grave, there we extend our hands, an unanswered wish uttered by any woman or man Karbala has never seen. And when we die, when our graves are dark, and when Shaykh Dua remains, Hussein shall visit us, just like we visited Hussein. Hussein shall visit us, just like we visited Hussein, bringing salam and ameen. And Zainab and Hussein shall stand beside us on judgment, as the angels call out, where are those who would once lament? Where are the visitors of Arbaeen? Sallallahu Muhammad wa
In the interest of time, we're going to take one question from the sisters and one question from the brothers. Any of the sisters have any questions?
I have a question. So what advice do you have for people who are interested in getting started in writing and reciting Islam poetry?
There was a piece of advice that I had recently, actually, which really touched me. And it was from a poet who's kind of blown up and become quite famous. And it's funny because, objectively speaking, I didn't think his poetry was that good, just being honest. But his advice really stunned me. Someone asked me the same question, and he said, my one advice is don't listen to anyone. Don't listen to anyone. And what I got from that, what I realized is, despite what people may think of his poetry, he's doing what he does. He's expressing himself the way he knows how. And no one can tell you, you know, poetry is such a personal thing, as we all know. It comes from the heart, especially when it's for the Ahlul Bayt. That's your connection between you and the Ahlul Bayt. So who can come and say, I don't know, does that connection really make sense? You know, obviously there's feedback we can give when it comes to poetry, the way you write it. It's important to study poetry. It's important to emulate people as well. But my point is that ultimately when it comes down to it, poetry, shi'r, the word in Arabic essentially means emotions. Poetry is emotions on paper. So essentially when it comes down to it, I would say keep that in mind. It's your emotions, your heart that you are putting on paper. Another advice I would give, which is very important, is approach every poem in a way from two angles. One, write it in a way that once you write it, you will never have to write it again. So of course we can write a million poems about the story of Abbas alayhi salam. But the perspective and the context in which you're writing it in, once you've written it, you never have to write it again, that same story. And the second one is always try to write what you've never heard or seen yourself. I think that's also very important.
Please give a loud salawat. Any question from one of the brothers? All right, please give a loud salawat for Nouri.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah, MashaAllah. That was a beautiful poem, beautiful piece. While he was illustrating and using his hands, I was right there. He painted a picture. Can we have one more salawat for Brother Nouri? The next poet I'm going to call up to the stage is Nabeala Salem, and the poetry title is The Timeless Gift. One more salawat, please.
Okay. Hi, assalamu alaikum everybody.
Hi.
As they introduced me, my name is Nabeala. That last poem is going to be really hard to follow up, but inshallah we'll try our best. If I could go back in time, I would visit a little girl. 11 years old, timid and shy, placing her hijab on her head for the very first time, but it was made bittersweet by the weight of the stairs. Grief striking through soft flesh, slowly seeping into her veins, I would tell that little girl with tears in her eyes, give the pain to your lady Zainab. For although her veil was taken, she will still veil you with her love, because how can a veil truly be taken when her cover were the heavens above? And although her back was broken, she will still straighten out your gate, because how can a back truly be broken when it belongs to the Ahlul Bayt? So walk with confidence, little one. Zainab will carry your pain. If I could go back in time, I would visit a little girl, furious at the world for making her a target. Every venomous taunt like a twist of the knife, deepening the wound, causing vengeance, sweet and thick like honey to settle on her tongue. I would tell that little girl with fire in her chest, give the anguish to your master Hussein. For although he died thirsty, he will still quench your tortured soul, because thirst on the tongue was no challenge when over his tongue he had mastered control. And although his head was severed, he will still caution you to keep yours, because any head kissed by Fatima knows that only love will bring reform. So walk with kindness, little one. Hussein will carry your anguish. If I could go back in time, I would visit a little girl, frightened beyond belief to reveal her sun and stars, because she'd been conditioned to believe they were simply ugly scars. Her first love was called anxiety, and it made her heart its throne, and the whispers of the night had found her mind a lovely home. So I would tell that little girl with terror in her limbs, give the fear to your protector, Abbas. For although he hit the sand with no arms to break his fall, he will still catch you when you stumble, because any arm given in service of Hussein will always save a believer in trouble. And although he could not guard the tents, he will still guard you against the fray, because the Alamdar's duty never ceases, and behind his shield you are always safe. So walk with assurance, little one. Abbas will carry your fear. If I could go back in time, I would visit a little girl, and as a gift to light her way, I would give her Karbala, and on the 40th day, I would ask her what she saw, and I hope that her response to me will be, I saw nothing but beauty.
Any of the sisters have a question?
First of all, I want to say that was a very beautiful person. Is there any specific experiences in your personal life that you feel comfortable sharing that inspired this poem? You share a lot of Muslim women, including yourself.
A lot of my experiences are things that a lot of particularly Muslim women, or I guess Shias in general, can relate to, which is that it's very easy to be ostracized in Western society. As Shias, it's very easy to be ostracized. As Muslim women, it's very easy to be ostracized. So I wanted to write something where I could look back at my younger self who didn't have the type of support that I have now, and to kind of say, here's the Ahlul Bayt, here are their stories. It's something that you can carry with you, especially because a lot of the times there's, the hijab, alhamdulillah for wearing it, but in this country, unfortunately, it creates that target. So that's kind of what inspires a lot of the work that I write.
Do any of the brothers have a question? Allow salawat. The next one coming to the stage is Sherwin.
Thanks for having me. It's a nice place. All right. To prompt this poem to get into what the vibe is like a text message I sent to a friend who was kind of helping me, edit it and stuff, and just giving me feedback through a few drafts. I said, thank you so much. Here's the piece. I feel it's strong. The point is, I'm weaving between dream logic and slice of life. The concept is Hossein is found in our dream logic, and that logic must merge with slice of life in order to become real and religious. That's why the words display a fade into dreamlike words. It's a sort of Frida Kahlo approach to abstract religious poetry. I hope you enjoy it. I'm still open to feedback. It's hard to decide why Hossein's important to me. I mean, he lived so many years ago. But Aki, sometimes when I do the brother, brother, brother chanting, Hossein's my brother, I go and I think of my brother, and God forbid losing him. Now that I cry in public, and I feel cool, because all these eyes of Muslims are watching me cry over Hossein, and I look like a good Muslim. And it's almost this wide and vaxxed, sweaty group therapy fight club experience. We all hug, crying on each other's shoulders. Nice. Be direct. But I'm really just probably crying over my brother, and I want to decide to be better to him, and Hossein conjured that vibe. So maybe Hossein is in you and me and my brother. Maybe he's in all our DNAs. Maybe it's just the DNA of being a good person, like a really good person. Perfection, maybe. But if he's too perfect, that's imperfect, right? I heard Ali joked a lot, and there's an absurdity to humor. Weed whacker. It doesn't worry me like rumors. Tree trapper. The perjury of tumors. Green catcher. Are they alive and worthy in their tombs, or be direct? Knee slapper. Whether they existed or not isn't the issue now, because after someone dies, all we have is their story anyways. Their issue towel. Be direct. We don't have their life, so what does it matter if they lived or not, if the story's filled with truth and beauty? But it does matter that Hossein actually existed. For it's where imagination and reality mesh, myth, mist, like Christian missions. Be direct. And we need that. Those two worlds must merge. How could the 50-50% of our existence be forever separated? It's so unnatural, right? Yes, it is, isn't it? Didn't this impression intend to get to Mexico's men of indefinite, infinite jest? Be direct. The skull is a border. The skull is a border. The skull is a border. But is it, or is it just styrofoam, metaphorically speaking? Meaning the 50% of existence which goes down in our brain, and the 50% of existence that is in the, quote, real world. Why is there such separation? Get it? Hossein, Jesus, God, all of them close that gap. An open laugh, the beaten, broken path, the eating, breathing, shouldered hand. Be direct. Sometimes I like to leave ideas unsewn like that. Don't live fear-based. Live in sheer faith. Live in abundance. You would think it would be a tiny bit embarrassing that I'm saying all the things that I haven't respected in books all my life. I was and am the cynical reader. Faith, abundance, the power of the moment were all nauseating cliches, fentanyl breeders, direct. But Islam is neither. It has nice stories. White glory like 44 and a 4th p.m. yesterday. Direct, son. When that guy was doing wuzu wrong, and Hassan and Hossein as kids asked if they were supposed to do wuzu this way, there's a lot of truth in that. You don't get that kind of extreme care for another person's feelings in America. Maybe you do. Atheist Americans are like Muslims in their own right. Baby shoes and May moons with newspapers you could barely see eyes behind. Die. It shows that there are different levels of morality in keeping it real, you know. There's certain things I try not to do in order to keep others comfortable, but I guess it comes in waves. Waves of concern, waves of egotism. I'm not the Imam Hussein. I'm the Eminem Hussein. Man, I wish I could cut out this malignancy. Hussein, help me. Help diminish these. When things get real cold, I call out all their names. Hussein, Hassan, Moses, Dad, Mom, Sherry, Allah, Adam, Jesus, Maria, Hussein, please help me. No, not this again. Don't let this happen again. Please help me. You already got me. Oh God, I take life so seriously. I love this blood-gulching religious roller coaster. The ups and downs. How thrilling. No, I'm just kidding. I need it. I don't want to go too out of control and end up being punished by Allah. Let's all pray for each other, because I don't know what's going on here. It's hard to decide, but that confusion is fantastical. The crown is obsidian, eternalized when it goes down in oblivion. I've got a picnic bench on my chest. People festive, light, eating and talking there. Be indirect. Thanks.
Bilal Salawat. Any questions from the sisters? Any question from any of our brothers? Zain.
Like specifically the up and down line, or kind of the whole thing? Okay, cool, thanks. Well, like, you know, I find myself like falling asleep at work sometimes, you know, and as I'm like falling, it's like getting this like micro sleep for like a second, and then there's an image that'll come to me. Or like, you know, sometimes before I fall asleep at night, and I'm actually like dreaming or whatever, I'll see, you know, little images. I'm sure everyone can close their eyes and see some imagery. Oftentimes that type of imagery are like dreams or abstract artwork, like a Salvador Dali piece, things that don't necessarily make logical sense. That's called dream logic. And in that, there may be some kind of image, right, that has a feeling connected to it that it's uncertain why that feeling's connected to that image. So for example, maybe somebody has a dream about a hammer hitting a nail, and then they wake up and they go, I don't know why, but I feel like that dream meant I need to do a lot more. And you're like, well, where's the connection? I don't know. There's just that feeling. So what I'm saying is, to dip into those feelings, the dreamlike imagery that you get, the thoughts that sometimes seem random, or why am I thinking this? Maybe there's some message there, there's a feeling there, there's mercy of Allah and that kind of beautiful artwork that He gives to us through imagination, daydreams, sleep, abstract art. And as a writer, don't be afraid to write that way. If you have like if you see a Dali piece where it's like an elephant with long legs and a crystal on its back and a pomegranate and a sword flying through the sky, you know. But if if I'm to say that, it may be weird. Like, why are you? That poetry doesn't make sense. But you could get away with it easily in painting and art, and you're seeing that in dreams all the time. So I'm saying, be comfortable writing stuff like that, thinking stuff like that, and pulling religiosity out of that. You know. All right, thank you.
Everyone, please give a loud salawat to Sherwin. Next poet come to the stage is Sukeinah.
This is the Sands elegy. With mad love drawn, by love guided, souls in world's existence caged, minds bound, but with their spirits soared, wings bathed in light of golden dome, to see and to be burned wings torn, like my every grain by sun scorched. Under bare feet I shift and bruise, feet that shed life and all else lose. Feet gather speed, the dome draw near, drawn in, away from the sun pulled. Millions of hearts as one beat seek, every heart in its state recluse. The horror, terror, desert scene, could you, your mind's eye, but have seen my prince, my king, cut, torn apart, yet in his headless body slain. In 360 some cuts his wounds, beauty shone, glory, none obscene. Within me, deep and drenched, I hold his kind blood, like his glowing blood, golden flesh of mere 100 men, red tears of millions crawling souls, tears that seek, beg, grovel, entreat, sob to see, never can behold. Down he fell, and timeless tears rolled, drooped down, face bloody unto me. That ground I am, the broken sand. Like a mother, her injured child received his hurt, weary body. In my palms sacred, held his blood. His and blood of the lion merged, blood of soulful eye extinguished. That eye into me deeply saw, my sands shifting my broken heart. Eyes put out, yet the prophet saw, from his cupped palm sweet water drank. Upon him lost eyes longed to rest, blurred with offering to his thirst. I molded myself to his face, that face once to my forehead lay. Prayer to God he whispered, breathed, upon me for some time silent. As into me dug every hoof, crushed those ribs that wept, echoed of ribs cracked broken behind the door. That moaning door, its hinges cursed, and the nail that drew blood and bled, of depravity, blinding proof. To those sweet ribs I called my pain. Would that this ache my own remain, that I had crumbled and not felt the footsteps of the one most cursed, the ringing slice of devil's blade, sever his noble self in twain. Upon me for 3 night and day, sacred and still, his body lay. Those bodies cooled by women's tears, shaken near life by sobs and wails, broken for orphans' shattered hearts, souls that forgot laughter and play. Upon me for 3 night and day, entreat I did angels to stay, leave him upon me, let him be, till came his son, grieving and ill, on sore feet to mold me a grave. In me he stayed, within me lay. His blood I store, his body hold, until I lie must entowsled, the earth having shaken at last. Mountains swollen like fluff and wool, from graves risen, the woken dead. I stand witness before my Lord. Salam.
of our sisters. Any questions from any of the brothers?
So what motivated you to write a poem where, from my understanding, you put it in the first person, like through the tragedy stuff like that. So what, like, motivated you? How did you come up with the idea to write that very first person?
One of the stories we hear many times during Al-Ashir is that small scene where Imam Hussein is weary with all his wounds and he's lonely, and he just falls to the sand and just lays his forehead on the ground for a while. And no one knows what was he doing, what was he saying. And to picture, I mean, as Muslims, we always say, we envy the dirt beneath the feet of Ahlul Bayt. Well, trying to put myself in that perspective. I mean, everything on the Day of Judgment will stand before Allah and bear witness, even the inanimate objects that we live with in daily life. And this is a very humble, very limited human attempt to understand those sands beneath him. What was going on, and how did the creatures there in any way imagine? But in the end, it's a very humble and very limited human perspective. Thank you.
Beautiful. Everyone, please give a loud salawat for our sister. Next poet coming to the stage is Amir Sulaiman again. Salawat for our brother.
Loneliness keeps me company when I'm alone. And most times that is enough. Often I have no home. The soul's rolling stone, a vagabond, roaming the mind's countryside, robbing the settlers of their thoughts. The dust has darkened my neck, and the dust has darkened my shoes. I'm a drifter, having occasional, short-lived, but passionate romances with the common ideas of the common folk. But when I'm still, I can feel my internal inferno burning for the companionship of words. I stand on the edge of something, looking into the depths of nothing. This is where I find myself, my test, and inspiration. Some may call it a meditation. For me, it's more of a conversation. It's simply the opening of oneself to oneself. It is to undress the ugliness of the last year and the progress of the present. It is to dig in the graveyard of your youthful aspirations and excavate the decaying carcass of your ideal. I'm not a hero, and I'm going to die soon, so I may never be a hero and die the death of regular men. This compels me to the road again, running from home, to home, and back again. My friends, my only friends are these abstract ideas that entertain. My home is a place I must have seen but can't explain. I'm passing my time, passing for sane, passing the blame, left of myself but right to my name. But my only defense of these abstract ideas that entertain. My home is a place I must have seen but can't explain. I know that I've been home, and I know that I felt once. I want to say something about this poem. This is a commercial break inside of the poem. This poem, the refrain is, I'm not a hero, and I'm going to die soon, so I may never be a hero and die the death of regular men. This compels me to the road again, running from home, to home, and back again. And where this phrasing came from was me considering very seriously the day of resurrection. And I said, if I die a regular death, there's no way I'm gonna make it. Like, I need to be shaheed. Like, that's the only way. Otherwise, I'm afraid I'm not gonna make the cut, so to speak. And so this poem is an exploration of that, which makes me think of this, that I've yet to learn the secret art of having peace at heart. I take the angst and the anger, make a piece of art. and then I speak it and I share it, and the peace departs to find its home in the warmth of the people's hearts. If I don't have peace with me, how can I have peace with God? It's all or nothing. You can't worship a peace of God. In fact, the peace of God's a facade where the secrets are. You worship God and remember God until you're seeing God. And then you're hearing and you're seeing end up being God. And your hands and your feet end up being God. The human being, God. Only if the human beings knew who the human beings are, my Lord. I've got a soft spot for widows and killers. Actually, I'm going to take another commercial break here. So in this, I remember reflecting on the reality of what it is to be just a human being, and then after that, a believing person, and after that, a follower of Seyed Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When you have this state, you can never despair. You can never despair. You can never despair of the mercy of Allah Ta'ala and the gift of Allah Ta'ala to be who you are. And when I consider, the one who created the sun and the moon and the stars and all these things in nature, and I marvel at the wonder of Allah, yet I look at that and I say, oh, this perfect God made this, and I think Allah did everything perfect except for me. And I say, is it possible that I can say that Allah did everything perfect except for me? Then I must be a part of that perfection, even in my flaw. I must be a part of that perfection because the perfect one created me. So we can never despair. Which makes me think of this. I'm actually on the third poem here. We're diving into the poems. What poems? Mark, I'm not going to take all night, I promise. So, I can never despair. Because imagine Jonah with no well. Imagine Joseph with no well. Jesus Christ, no well. Oh, they don't study the prophets, oh well. I make sure my daughters know well that the true believer takes no L. That the true believer takes no L. Imagine Jonah with no well. Imagine Joseph with no well. Jesus Christ, no well. Oh, they don't study the prophets, oh well. I make sure my daughters know well that the true believer takes no L. That the true believer takes no L. Okay, now to the other poem. I'm not a hero, and I'm going to die soon, so I may never be a hero and die the death of regular men. This compels me to the road again, running from home to home and back again. My friends, my only friends are these abstract ideas that entertain. My home is a place I must have seen but can't explain. I'm passing my time, passing for sane, passing the blame, left of myself but right to my name. But my only defense of these abstract ideas to entertain, my home is a place I must have seen but can't explain. I just know, I know that I've been home. And I know that I felt once. At some time, at some place in my distant youth, I cried tenderly, loved intensely. But now I don't think that those feelings remember me. My heart feels filled with November leaves tumbled by a December breeze. April may never come. The groundhog stays in the ground with no desire to see the sun. I'm a vagabond, not a fugitive, so I don't live on the run. I live on a walk. The type of slow stroll that gets me some time to think, some time to breathe, just some time to get away from things. But I never seem to come back to things and forget what things I was getting away from and why. Perhaps my things have just died under my bed. Or instead, the building strengthened in a dark cloud over my head. Maybe they won't come to light until I'm older or dead. I remind me of what this loner once said. He said, nobody needs anybody. And I believed him, but who would want to lead the non-life that he led? I wasn't born alone. My mother was there. And I won't die alone. The angel of death will be there. But I will be alone before Allah when my book of deeds is disclosed, when my sins are exposed, the dark part of my heart that nobody knows. I won't have the comfort of company, not even the comfort of clothes. I stand naked and nervous before truth. And I'm not a hero. And I'm going to die soon. So I may never be a hero and die the death of regular men. This compels me to the road again. Running from home to home and back again. I am vagabond.
Any question from any of the sisters?
Alhamdulillah, the pleasure's mine.
I'm curious, are there topics that you just avoid entirely in poetry?
Nothing I can think of that I consciously, deliberately avoid. There's many topics I haven't written poetry about, but I can't think of one that I'm just automatically opposed to engaging. Not at least I can think of off the top of my head.
Question from any of the brothers?
Sorry, somebody else. Wow, that poem right there about just the way you describe going home and back home. Do you start with that concept of wanting to describe what it's like to get to the resurrection and not be able to? How do you get there?
With the exception of maybe 99% of the time, I don't know what the subject of my poem is about when I start writing the poem. I'll just start exploring words and very kind of, it's like almost like a dreamlike thing of just words, and then as I'm writing, then they start to kind of come together, and then I get a sense like, oh, this is what this poem is about, and then I start to write with intention about that particular idea. So that poem just started with, loneliness keeps me company when I'm alone. And most times that is enough, often I have no home. That was the line that just appeared, and as I explored it more and more, and it's almost like a kind of mining, you know, in one's own heart, and digging up what is the meaning, what's really there, and then it'll reveal itself to me. But generally speaking, I don't know ahead of time.
And the passion, are you writing with intention or the passion, or is it coming out?
Usually it comes out only in the performance, so I write it, and then as I say it once, 2 times, 3 times, 6 months, and it'll start to have a tone, a life of its own, and then I know how this poem is supposed to be said as opposed to how it reads on the page. Yeah? Alhamdulillah, thank you very much.
Everyone, please give a loud salawat for our brother Amir. Next poet coming to the stage is our sister Kawther.
Okay, thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And I would like to say to the non-Muslims in the audience, peace be upon you as well. My poem is actually set in the future after Arbaeen and Eid al-Sahra is over, but I felt it was essential to Arbaeen as well. I just want you to know that I traveled up here from San Diego about a month ago. I tripped on a pothole in a parking lot and sustained brain, neck, and back injuries, and I should actually be home in bed. Should be bedridden right now, but I wanted to stand up for Imam Hussein. So.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل فرجهم.
Okay. Can I get another salawat?
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل فرجهم.
Can we bid farewell to the days of mourning now? It is months past all the fanfare and hoopla with rising black flags heralding the beginning of the morning of the new year now packed away, and the passion plays and recitations of the Mukhtar and musibat only barely stoking the fires of our memories and semi-forgotten indignities of life. Can we bid farewell to the days of mourning now? Safar has finished and Eid al-Zahra has come and gone. Will there be another year waiting for the final Eids before the return? Or is it far and coming near to us? How much more chaos and personal sorrow must we endure? Can we bid farewell to the days of mourning now? Why do we live in this time where only the ground under our feet does not give way and change? But even then, bi'ithnillah, can he not cause the earth to shift beneath us and swallow us whole? Then where would we turn, and whose call would we answer then? And who, pray tell, would save us? Can we bid farewell to the days of mourning now? Do not ask this question, sympathetic and broken heart. O you who claims to know him intimately and loudly chants his name, how can we speak of him or understand him if we know not the unfortunate parts of life, like injustice, meanness, or usurpation of life, love, and goods? Can we bid farewell to the days of mourning now? We turn and turn and turn in Toba, whirling toward you each time the world spins in another direction, grounding ourselves in dirt and earth at this foreboding task we have been charged with, to maintain homeostasis when all but Allah and his saints have changed. Can we bid farewell to the days of mourning now if we make Imam Hussein our permanent Qibla, our place of meeting and encampment? Despite every turn of the wheel of fortune, will we remain, due to our attachment, in unchanging states of affliction, worse than Ayub, with every calamity and sorrow the mind could conceive? Can we bid farewell to the days of mourning now? If we really understood him, if we really knew of his fervent love for us and our well-being, and if we really knew what his sacrifice meant, how can we not remain forever free and unchained from tarnished goods and half-remembered melodies? Would we still want to end the days of mourning for one of our greatest friends, supporters, and confidants? Or would we wait expectantly at the next chance to express our sorrow for Karbala? Thank you.
Does everyone give a loud salawat? Any questions from any of the sisters?
How long have you been writing poetry?
I think I wrote my first poem when I was 7, but I didn't start writing regularly until I was about 13. But all this time I haven't been studying writing poetry. I also write fiction. I'm working on screenplays, but I think that, in high school, actually, I didn't pay attention to the teachers. I just wrote poetry. And all my classmates loved my poetry. And I think I kind of got a big head. So my first disappointment, I couldn't get my poetry in the high school yearbook. So that really, it really made me sad, and it kind of made me not write poetry for a long time. But I think after I became Muslim, it stoked the fires to, express that again.
Question from any of the brothers? All right, can everyone please give a loud song for our sister?
Okay, mashallah. One more Nari salawat for the sister. How's everybody feeling? The next poet is my good friend and dear brother from Zainabiya Society. We listen to Salem together. Please give a loud Nari salawat for Zaki Haider.
So the writer of this piece is anonymous. The piece is called Visions of Karbala. Before I begin, let's start with a loud salawat. Here's the tale of the nightly trance, the vision of Karbala in deathly dance, when a martyr great faced the lance of shameful shimmer for Islam to enhance. No war, or weapon, or battle sound this tragedy of world all round. No hero hooked to holiness stood with such held high, without shelter or food. His trumpet spake not to an armed throng, but to 72 saints, the celestial strong. They all sang a heavenly song, giving their all to avenge a wrong. Satanic scepters arranged with an awful eye, this orgy of blood without a sign. While our sovereign Lord was passing by, while our sovereign Lord was passing by, while our sovereign Lord was passing by in scorching sand to answer people's cry. For Islam's unity, he surrendered his head. For Islam's unity, he surrendered his head. For Islam's unity, he surrendered his head. With his darling children, he nobly fed the starving ummah on its deathbed, because through sacrifice all nations made. And in the great words of Khwaja Gharib Nawaz, also known as Wainuddin Chishti, in Farsi he writes, Shah Ast Hussain, Badshah Ast Hussain, Deen Ast Hussain, Deen Bana Ast Hussain, Sardar Nadad Dar Daste Yazid, Hakke Bana La Ilaha Ast Hussain. To translate in English, ruler is Hussein, emperor is Hussein, faith is Hussein, guardian of faith is Hussein, offered his head and not the hand to Yazid. Indeed, Hussein is the foundation of La ilaha illallah. Salawat Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Any questions from any of the sisters? Any questions from any of our brothers?
Yes, I just learned English.
Don't forget, he's good at Farsi too.
Alrighty, everyone, please give a loud salawat for our brother. The next poet coming to the stage is Jamesa Fields. Please, everyone, give a loud salawat for our sister.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Now, I have to admit that I've never heard of Karbala or Arbaeen until this past week. And so I'm really grateful to learn about it. And I'm going to try to get through this piece. So I'm going to need you guys' help. So I don't know how to do the salawat. So anytime that you think it's appropriate, I encourage you guys to jump in my poem. If you agree, I want you guys to say, oh yes. Can I get one quick rehearsal on the count of 3? So is everyone here, or are you a Muslim?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Do you love Ahlul Bayt?
Oh, yes.
Do you know how to do salawat on Ahlul Bayt?
Oh, yes.
Can you do it? Somebody's gonna have to write that down for me. So we're gonna get started. I called this piece, it's a remix of a song that I could never finish. And so I converted it into, it used to be called Warrior Song. And I converted it to, it's actually not helping. I converted it to Arbaeen Warrior Song. So the You guys like the new title? Yeah. You guys didn't do it. That was a test. You guys let us not be like, Karbala and fail the test. Let's go ahead and say, oh, yes. So I'm counting on you guys because I need you right now. My goal is to pay off our debt. Oh, yes. And wipe the tears of those who've wept. Oh, yes. For one of this Ummah's hardest of tests. Oh, yes. Under polyester prayer rugs, these histories have been swept. Oh, yes. My goal is to research these events. Oh, yes. The ones that blocked the household of our prophet. Oh, yes. Then diverted them to Karbala, where Umayyads cut off their heads. Oh, yes. Asiya. Master said we can't talk about that yet. Oh yes, we can. Hussein lived by truth and justice. Oh, yes. Died defending the weak and suppressed. Oh, yes. His goal was not to reason with death. Oh, yes. Goal was to be one God blessed. Oh, yes. The enemies used their tonic and their stress. Oh, yes. Claimed the caliphate through bribes and death threats. Oh, yes. And led our ummah to this bloody mess. Oh, yes. These wounds their bribes could never overdress. Oh, yes. We won't ever accept. Oh, yes. This I want to dedicate to you and you and you, because I want you to follow through a true and do them things and put you if it do, can't let no man take you for food. That tool, for rude. Mr. Liar, Mrs. Thief. Whoa. Catch a fire, gonna reap. Why? Everything you did to my peeps. Wow, cause me no say history repeats. Me fed up with the system of a breach. So me grab a pen, I'm gonna teach. And write down what you did to us last week. Cause me no say history repeats. And to the lovers of Al Bayt in the east, the south, freedom fighting for their peace, the north, the route, because they'd rather die upon their feet. Yes, they shout, then continue living on their knees, chase them out, miss where they'd rather die upon their feet. Yes, then continue living on their knees, chase. This is my warrior song. Ba-da-ba-dum, ba-da-ba-dum. In honor of Imam Hussein. Ba-da-ba-dum, ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-dum. So when you hear this warrior song, ba-da-ba-dum, truth and justice is coming your way. Ba-da-ba-dum. Seeds of corruption and deceit planted against humanity. In a quick sauna of the sink, you overestimated your need. You didn't know that one of these days, in a day since you were the one who betrayed, you got played, and after they're done killing our best, they'll be coming for you next. Next. Oh, watch us steal and watch us flex. We no cut no tree and we no kill no innocent. We fighting for we freedom and we no set coffee less. Till we draw we last breath, chanting the almighty name, cause he's the best of the best. If you keep on stomping on God's people, he'll start stomping over you. They laughed and taunted Ali's daughters and granddaughters of Rasul. Saying Zainab's brothers, fathers, and their families' rulings through. She stood up proud in defiance for their wicked eyes to view. Proclaim true losers of Karbala. We're those traitors of the truth. Perhaps you only got to live longer, so your bad deeds could accrue. The devil used you as his fodder, and now you'll end up like Firun. Cause you kept on stomping on God's pilgrims. Now Arbaeen stomping over you. Oh, oppressors of the weak. You remind me of that murderer Yazid. Shh, don't keep mentioning his bad deeds. One shouldn't judge the Sahaba you didn't just try to haram police me for cursing the killers of Ahlul Bayt babies. Them people don't go where we go. 70 demons in an amigo. Them not overstanding a part to the planet and coming up part to the ego. Keep on stomping on poor people. We'll start stomping over you. Stomping over you, stomping over you, stomping. This is our Arbaeen song. Arbaeen song. In honor of those who were slain. So when you hear this Arbaeen song, you should know they didn't die in vain. Todo mi gente tanki con mi salam mami, la madre de Jesús en Nouravi, oh sí, como dicen también en francés, oh sí, somos hermanos tal vez, pues sí, es tiempo que debemos hacer, sí, las cosas que nos puso aquí para hacer, pues sí, la paz como mera mujer, la María, Asiya, Khadija y Fatima. Thank you.
Does everyone give a loud salawat for our sister?
Everyone who said, oh yes, deserves a sticker, so make sure you guys come see me and you get your sticker, because, you know, I'm all about that.
Any questions from any of the sisters?
Mashallah, the best crowd ever was in Brea, California. Islam Poetry Slam. Give it up for our host, Mukhtar and all the people behind the scenes.
Any questions from any of the brothers? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Sister's not gonna let me skip over them. All right.
I actually was afraid to learn because I came from a very divided Christian family and I was tired of it, and I was very attracted to Islam, not through people, but I learned it through September 11th in the downtown LA library. I checked out a whole bunch of books, and back then it was cassette tapes. And a lot of it was on terrorism, and I was just like, whatever, because they called El Salvadorians terrorism just to steal our land. So I was like, yeah, same, different toilet. So I was like, okay, they're not terrorists, so let's see what's up with these Muslims who are throwing rocks at tanks.
A question from any of our brothers?
Let me ask, why do you get emotional when you be on stage just learning about Arbaeen and Ashura?
Because I'm just sick of, just injustice everywhere. And I think that, as a Muslim that comes from different backgrounds, I know that fights happen because of miscommunication and people not wanting to admit when they're wrong. And I love math, and I've been learning there's different sects of math, of Islam, and some of them say, well, Islam is math. And I'm like, well, yeah, Islam is logical like math. So maybe that's what they mean, I don't know. But I'm just saying, if you do a calculus problem and you get one step wrong, no matter how good you do the rest of the calculus problem, you're never gonna get the right answer. So we have to go back, we have to admit what we did wrong, and we have to unify, because unity is the key to our power, and Allah is the key to unity. And, truth and justice is something that He stood for. And, I don't know how I would do that, but I would want to be a part of a ummah that, have people like this. So it just hurt me to find out that, I've been Muslim for so long and I never heard about this. hope I've answered your questions. Okay, I hope you guys can check me out on my website, umisa.com, UMMISSA. It was an honor to be here, and I hope to learn more about the Shia community and teachings. Inshallah, make dua for me. Assalamu alaikum.
The next poet coming to the stage is Zachary Abbas.
I seek not a tale but truth as a balm for this wound that stretches across time. And I begin with a reminder of that great crime. What words can describe the murder of Imam Hussein, done by the accursed who sought rape? Our eyes still don't dry from our morning tears. With a shout we declare to the world after these many years, Labbaik ya Hussein. So it began with the violated promise written in the unworthy one's will, that those who oppose his son's rule, his gang shall kill. Thus Yazid forced himself onto power, a vain man, a drunkard, a monkey on the Prophet's pulpit, disregarding his inevitable hour. There began the great controversy, that a villain can claim to be the successor of the one sent to the world as a mercy. The righteous did rise, and across the heavens were echoed their cries, Labbaik ya Hussein. As the wolves wearing the clothes of sheep lined up and gave this usurper the oath, Al-Hussein said no to tyranny, for giving Yazid legitimacy he was loath. One by one streamed in the letters from Kufa, calling the Imam to come to the city. That few of those signed names offering support for truly brave is a great pity. Labbaik ya Hussein. So went ahead to verify with the Imam's emissary, but there he found all that support had melted away by tricks very scary. One by one they left Muslim until in the streets he was alone. For those people were faithful not, but instead sought protection for their properties they did own. And so it was that Muslim was thrown off the roof by that great hypocrite. To the truth in his words, Ibn Marjan could not admit. Meanwhile marched on that caravan of love, with the events to unfold, watched by the chanting heavens above, Labbaik ya Hussein. So it was that the moon rose on Muharram II, and destiny began to beckon. The first of Ibn Sa'd's army arrived under the leadership of Al-Hajj. Blocked from exit, they gathered for battle, but this action did the Imam deter. He commanded that not a drop of blood would be spilled if it was unlawful, for the consequences of striking first would be awful. And Al-Hud for the rest of the army did wait, unaware that righteousness is his ultimate fate. One by one the killers arrived, each one of them for mercy on that final day shall be deprived. They came not as out of thought intending resolution, but instead holding a writ for execution. They demanded, to the tyrant allegiance you should swear, else we shall catch you in our snare. Can truth ever be friends with the lie? Verily on such a day does truth die. Death with dignity is better than a life of humiliation, came the words inviting salvation. Ibn Sa'd prepared to fight, promised the rule of Ray, and the Imam promised him he'd never eat from its wheat on any day. Came out the cry by those standing in front of the Imam and for righteousness ready to die, Labbaik ya Hussein. The sun was at its zenith, it was midday, and the righteous host stopped fighting to pray, while Al-Hussein's camp bowed down and prayed the best of any believer. The army of wickedness was told by Shimmer to fire on the disbeliever. Such were the words of that deceiver. Now lay departed each friend, yet the Imam would surely see this to the end. What can be said about the master of paradise's youth, other than that he revolted only for the truth? Tired and suffering from thirst, the children wept. The mission of fetching water did Abbas accept. Slain was Abbas, who rejected in favor of truth worldly things. Instead of arms, he will fly to heaven with wings. Alone now, turning to each of them and addressing words that remain a true blessing. Even if belief in religion you have ceased, then be free at least. Finished with his final word, the alone Imam unsheathed his sword. And who can stand up to the malevolent, save for the mercy to the world who is benevolent? He fought until his wounds were too deep, and the heavens his camp and his followers began to weep. The criminals mounted the air of the Prophet's head on a spear, and went to the tents to strike terror and fear. They who ignored those raised and pleading hands, and have fought against righteousness wherever it stands. They challenged the rightful succession, and with arrows impeded Al-Hasan's burial procession. Fire and firewood to the door of the Kawther verse, and allegiance they did coerce. They cut the arms of the water bearer, and upon the children inflicted terror. They tore off from young Sukeinah's ears each earring, and upon the raised infant they each released their bowstring. And who can fire upon an infant an arrow? None other than they, worse than the Pharaoh. They who poisoned the leaders of those who pray, and inflicted on Al-Baqir tyranny every day. They violated Ja'far's rights, and imprisoned Musa for many nights. They buried Al-Rida in the land so strange, and for Al-Jawad's young death they did arrange. They hid Al-Hadi in the darkness of Samara, he who is that distinguished lamb, and kept Al-Askari a prisoner in that military camp. But they will not stop the shout from the skies, which announces that Al-Qaim will indeed rise. On that fateful day to the world entire he will say, my grandfather Hussein was killed thirsty by the worshippers of this dunya so dirty. What can be said about the righteous hosts who on that day in defense of truth fought? Do not say those whom are slain in the way of God are dead. They live, only you perceive it not. There is no response when the criminals ask why they are suffering in the heat, but that the wrongdoers will come to know what evil end they will meet. And true is that line, for their fate is to all of humanity a sign. What happened to those who inflicted upon existence such a pain? Where do they still presently reign? While still stands Hussein's dome, where the visitors on his 40th day feel at home. With those who are at peace with you, Abu Abdullah, I am at peace. Against those who oppose you, I shall never cease. By your example do I know how to pray, and still shout the people from across the world today, Labbaik ya Hussein. Thank you.
We'll give Allah salawat. Any questions from any of our sisters? Any questions from any of the brothers?
Yes, you need to put that on YouTube. Well done.
It's going there, man.
Please, everyone, give Allah salawat for our brother. Our next poet coming to the stage is our sister Asiya. Allah salawat for her.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
Please recite a Surah Fatiha for the Shaheed of Karbala. My name is Zainab. I'm from MWA, Muslims with Allah, not Muslims with attitude. But if you give us dua, we'll be Muslims with altitude. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, most merciful over everything. O Chalum, the last day of the doom, they finally got released from the dungeon room. Yazid is a coward, Yazid is a fraud, Yazid knows nothing about Allah our God. On Shalom, they gave back the heads. They gave back the heads of the blessed dead. They gave back the head of Hazrat Abbas, protector of our freedom till his hands were lost. Oh, Bibi Zainab, they didn't give you water, but they returned your brother's head on a silver platter. They returned the head of Ali Askar, the infant Shaheed, and the head of Hussein's Habib. They took Hor's head off the spear. The time is near for them to leave Sham. But first Qasim's head had it claimed by Farwa, his mom. On Shalom, they gave back the heads. They gave back the heads of the blessed Des. Since Ashur, the head of Hazrat John has been shining on. They had the head of Hazrat Ali Akbar, who resembled the Prophet more than any other. What could Bibi Zainab do? Would they let her claim the head of Ona Muhammad and Imam Hussein too? They returned the head of Zubair ibn Gain, who fought for the family of Imam Hussein. O Shalom, they gave back the heads. They gave back the heads of the blessed dead. There were 2 extra platters that came out. One had Bibi Fatima Gobra's bangles that were all broken up. The other had Bibi Sukeinah's pearl earrings that were covered in blood. Those earrings were a gift from her father Hussein. Earlobes are bleeding and Sukeinah is in pain. Sukeinah do, Mary John do, Rahai Meli, Chalo Gar Chale. Sukeinah never returned home. She'll live in our hearts. She will give us hope. Sukeinah do, Mary John do, Rahai Meli, Chalo Gar Chale. Sukeinah do, Mary John do, Rahai Meli, Chalo Gar Chale. Salawat. Please join us tomorrow for Garbala Poetry Night.
Any questions from any of our sisters? Any questions? Any questions from any of our brothers?
I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
Our next poet coming to the stage, Zain Kassamali.
Woo!
Awad. Please forgive me. I'm a tired little dude at this point. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Before I knew the value of living like Ali and Fatima, when I was in the dune buggy, not knowing Fatiha, and I used to skip Salat like the nuktas on the yacht, and I softened the Bala in Karbala. A'udhu billah, a'udhu billah. Before I knew the value of living like Ali and Fatima, the cries of the oppressed stretch from the ard to samawat, trace it back in time like Quran to Injil to Tawrat, Zameen or Asman or Puri Kainat. Before I knew the value of living like Ali and Fatima, stop injustice from the hand or the tongue, and if it can't be done, remove it in the heart. Thoughts reconstruct, minds restart. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم. The heart of the Quran, Al-Majid, Quran Sharif, Quran Al-Kareem. Who is Hussein? The heart of Arbaeen, whose head was on a spear, whose head was on a plate, whose head was on display in Darbari Yazid, who put the Jahil in Jahiliyyah for his hostility and hate towards Ahlul Bayt. Zainab, oh Zainab, oh Zainab, the Shahzadi from Shahzanan, paraded from Kufa to Sham with shackles on and bay-hijab. Zameen or Asman ka fark, difference in akhlaq. 72 versus the qatil, haq versus batil. Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajal.
Before I knew the value of living like Ali and Fatima, when I was in the dune buggy, not knowing Fatiha, and I used to skip Salat like the nuktas on the yacht, and I softened the Bala in Karbala. A'udhu billah, a'udhu billah. Yazid was like shaitan against the army of Islam. How can we move on? How can we move on? We love Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. a grandpa's love for his son's son. Glorious Quran, the beads to my life. Walking Qurans, shaheed by the knife. The call from Mahram, let's jump on this flight. Zainab's in pain all through the night. Mix the blood with the tears, got funds out of sight. If I could travel in time, Yazid would go blind. I'd tear out his eyes with Hormuz fear. Enemies of the bait, nothing friendly about fire. Straight line to God, Lion of God, Abbas Alamdar, Alamdar, Alamdar. Lion of God, Abbas Alamdar, Alamdar, Alamdar. And of Hussein, what can I say? The most alive, anytime, any day. If the question remains, who is Hussein? Voice from the heavens and brought down in rain. His reign timeless while men had passed in time. If there's ever a doubt, ask Zainab the question. After all she saw, she witnessed perfection. Salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وسلم.
Any of our sisters have any questions? Any of our brothers have a question? In the back.
Zain, when are you dropping the album?
Inshallah, the goal of this project is to drop an album. So with multiple poets, you know. Inshallah, so it's in the works.
So essentially what we plan on doing is we're taking 12 poets. The eventual goal is to take those 12 poets and go to Karbala and do the same thing that we're doing here over there and release an album. Inshallah.
Good question over here.
The lady.
Oh, go ahead.
How long does it take you to write these?
Great question. I actually wrote this. So this is how this whole thing emanated. So Brother Komail Moomin had a poetry night at his house, and he runs a program with Al-Asr. So he had a poetry night, and I recited, right? I was the closing act, just like tonight. And mashallah, the audience responded really well. So Brother Mukhtar is a good friend of mine. I actually told him about it, and he said, brother, we need to do this for the community. So then that's how it planned. And so this poem I actually wrote for Komail's poetry night during the first 10 days of Muharram. And then when we off the strength of this event, I took that piece and added more to it. So I've probably been writing it and rewriting it since around Ashur time. So yeah, did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, everyone, please give a loud salawat for our brother Zain. All right, introducing the last poet of the night. And you've seen him already. We just wanted to bring him back out to close out the night really big. Please give a loud salawat for our brother Amir Sulaiman.
Loneliness keeps me company when I'm alone, and the dead won't let me sleep. The living won't let me die in peace. My heart filled with the yesterday that never happened. My hands filled with my face, my long breaths bleeding between my fingers. I killed myself once, but my lives are plural. That's why I can speak to the immoral like I'm immortal. The mind is fertile. Birth a verse with no epidural. The truth hurts, speaking life into the dead as if it's normal. This is the lion-hearted, the fire starter, the sound and the fury, William Faulkner, the color purple, Alice Walker, Canterbury Tales, Geoffrey Chaucer. Every people are sent a prophet, likewise every people will be sent the imposter, and every people have been sent the author to tell their story. This is the tale of what turns a man into a monster, and what turns that monster into a martyr. And the shadow of untold trauma, the secret art of how to unfold karma, and the divine unknown drama, true and living. We're just trying to make black history, but it's like we're trying to make blacks history, and won't even write a eulogy for you and me. Misery loves company, but the company loves misery. You know, when I went to Iran, I went and visited Iran. This is a intermission from the poem forward. Went and visited Iran on 2 occasions. And one of the things that I found most profoundly that I found in Iran, and I landed on the day of Ashura. And that was the first time I experienced it in that way, you know, as if the whole, with the feeling was like, as if the whole world was commemorating this day. But what I found in my time there was, in that time, in that particular moment, was the deep connection that I had with it as far as the struggle of Black American people in America. And this day of mourning, and this day of justice, and this day of recognizing injustice as injustice, injustice as justice, and recognizing the people who sacrificed their lives in order for us to be who we are and be where we are and be how we are. I felt a very deep, almost ancestral connection to it. And so this is something about where this poem is coming from. Misery loves company, but the company loves misery. The company will co-op your story and sell your tragedy in HD, your suffering seen more vividly. Obviously, we must be NSFW. They don't want to pay you but peddle you, or just petty cash to settle you. That's why it's hard to employ me, but even harder to ignore me. The irony isn't lost on me, how they made slaves of the masses of ceremonies. Ha, clever. Me, never. They like the women spayed, niggas neutered, nigga babies carefully tutored to be foolish yet ruthless, to eat garbage and drink sewage, until even saying African American as if you're Judas. The American dream is a love song gone wrong, a fantasy long gone. And if you knew this and still want to be a slave, then you're stupid and useless. I'm gonna tell you straight. This ain't the shucking and jiving and picking nigga. This is the pick of the litter. Alpha male, they still smell like infamil, imbecile. I'm Oscar Grant, still more than Emmett Till. I'm Emmett Smith, no NFL, running and juking in the killing fields, and those killing fields deadly enough even to make Emmett still. I admit still, shooken up every time I see Emmett's grill. Let me mention something to you about this Emmett Till. Emmett Till is a young Black boy from Chicago, Illinois, who was visiting his family in the South, and he was accused of looking at or flirting with or whistling at a white woman. And so this boy, who I think was 12 or 13 years old, they killed him and tied his rope to this heavy fin and threw him in the river. When they took him out, his face was unrecognizable. They beat him so bad for this offense of offending a white woman as a Black boy. This, the mother of Emmett Till, required that they have an open casket, so that everyone who came for the funeral, they had to see how they disfigured her son. Of course, this is reminding me about this occasion that we have here about a mother or a wife or a sister or a daughter or a niece that has to bear, to witness with their own eyes, the gruesome violence of injustice upon innocent people. Shooken up every time I see Emmett's grill. It's in my molar spark and I taste battery acid. And maybe that's too drastic. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe seeing dead babies shouldn't faze me, but it does. It does, it does. Are we not flesh and bone? Are we not minds and souls? Our eyes either blind or closed, as if we don't see, as if we don't know. They would kill me. Like it's no biggie, no diddy. While we arguing over who's the king of New York City, they emasculate the greats. Buy Black Panther, Hello Kitty, or slowly assassinate the greats. Goodbye Whitney. You can see the future if you learn history. I'm speaking to you straight and right. They'll have you leaning left to like 450. But the wealth, weed, or women chasing dimes, wasting time. Wealth, weed, or women chasing dimes. That's a triple, double entendre and alliteration at the same time. Okay, so the Sufi can rhyme. Can we have another conversation over your top 5 that are alive? Can we talk about the top 1% and bottom 99? Or the wise 5% and deaf, dumb, and blind 85? Or how the circle 7 and 120 saved our lives? On a boat with Jesus' name, Lucifer came. And then proof of our name went poof, David Blaine. Disappeared between the noose and the chains. Youth and nature introducing the youth to the cane. So we're singing and rapping attempts at reducing the pain because we don't know what else to do with the pain. We don't know what else to do with the pain. They say rap for us and then they clap for us. Are you not entertained? Standing on my brother's body, are you not entertained? Carrying my son's carcass, are you not entertained? But still, through all of the battery and all of the abuse, we are still so beautiful. Our babies like balls of light, bright enough to brighten the darkness of the battlefield. But looking into my daughter's face only reminds me that there's a battle still, and that the battle's real, and that a draw is a win for losers. We must win. They have killed us so many times. We have died so many deaths. We have died for everyone. We have died for everything. We have died for nothing. We are done with that. We are done with that. We will not die another day. We are the true and living, and we must win.
Wow. So, keep the sisters have the last question for our brother. If the brothers have a last question for our brother.
Yeah, if you go on YouTube and type my name, you'll find a bunch of stuff. And actually, I'm releasing a new album on Monday, as a matter of fact. So after this weekend, an album called Of Beauty and Breaking. And I have books. I don't have them with me here now. If you go to my website, AmirSulaiman.com, you can order books from there. Yes? I really appreciate you very deeply for having me here. I'm very honored to be your guest on this auspicious occasion. Please remember me in your dua, and please forgive me for any of my trespasses in your space, and I look forward to sharing time with you again, inshallah.